Hey, this is AJ. Welcome back to the Handyman process. In today's video, I'm going to be starting a new series called The Simple Path to Handyman. And in this Simple Path to Handyman, I'm going to be going over multiple topics, kind of in chronological order of things you should do if you're trying to establish your handyman business, or if you just want to refresh on, why did you get into business to begin with, or you want to touch up on certain processes. So I'm going to start from the very basics, at the beginning to figure out why do I want to be a handyman and work our way all the way through some of the complicated stuff coming up later. So, with that being said, let's get into the first part, lesson one here, which is what is your reason or what is your why for becoming a handyman? Why do I want to be a handyman? A lot of us don't ask that ourselves that question, right? We kind of fall into this one way or another, and we realize it later on why we are handyman, but we don't really. A lot of us don't think about it beforehand. Why do I want to be a handyman? And I think it's important to kind of go through this mental exercise a little bit if you're just getting started, because it'll help you kind of understand the reasons that you're doing this business when times get tough or when things are going really well. It'll keep you grounded. So I'm going to walk through some basic things that what I recommend that you do is you take a look at these questions, you write them down, and you write answers to them. The reason I'm asking you to do that is when you write questions down and then when you write answers to them, you're taking the stuff out of your brain, you're putting it on paper, and it's allowing you to think as if it was somebody else's issue. We tend to think more clearly that way. This is a great exercise that I personally do whenever I have any big decisions to make. I stop thinking about it in my head. I start writing out questions. I start asking myself questions and answering those questions. And then as you go through that process, the truth kind of reveals itself, whether you like it or not. Whether you should do something or not becomes pretty clear. If you're wise enough, you see what you wrote down and you heed that advice that you kind of gave yourself. A lot of people will be like, "Oh, I don't agree with what I just said," and move on anyway. So I hope that you go through this exercise and that you take the time to reflect on your answers and then make your decisions based off of that. So with that being said, I'm going to kind of walk through a couple different slides here that just has the questions. And down in the description, what I'll go ahead and do is I'll post this Google Slides in there. So if you want to download this yourself and do this on a piece of white paper, you can go ahead. But I'm going to kind of touch on it briefly. I'm going to throw a little bit of my personal experience with these types of questions in there. I'll give you something to think about as you're going through this exercise. So the first one I would want to start off with is the personal motivation, right? Um, there's a reason, if you're thinking about getting into this business, there's a personal motivation reason probably behind it. In my case, it's question number one: do I enjoy working with my hands and solving problems? I absolutely love that. I've loved that since I was a child. I've gone different directions and different careers, but if I ask myself, do I enjoy working with my hands and solving problems? I'm going to write like paragraphs on yes, and this is why I love being outdoors. I love working with my hands. So that's a big thing with handyman. If you don't like working with your hands, if you don't like getting dirty, if you don't like manual labor, be honest with yourself, right? And write the answers down. The second one, probably the biggest factor why I do this, am I motivated by the satisfaction of helping people? That's probably my number one thing. I love the instant gratification that I get from this job, and it's a guiding principle for me. When I finish a project and the homeowner is completely satisfied with it, to me there's no better feeling than that. And the third one is, do you thrive to be in a fast-paced, independent work environment? Some people like this, some people don't. Some people want to sit at a desk and just kind of veg out all day. I love chaos. I love change. I love being on my own, calling all the shots, managing my schedule. But these are three kind of personal motivation questions that I would recommend that you just be honest with yourself. Kind of write these questions down, write your answers down. If you're kind of yes to all these, and if you have a lot to say, then you probably get a check on personal motivation in terms of getting into the handyman business. Moving on to number two, skills and experience. I've harped on this in some of my videos before. I constantly say if you're not handy, you probably shouldn't get into this business. And somebody reached out to me recently in one of my comments and said, "Hey, man, I wasn't handy. I learned on the job," and I have mixed feelings on that. Right? I think that's okay as long as you're honest with the homeowner, right? So anybody who's just starting off in this is not going to have all the experience, right? You're not going to be great at all sorts of things, but you may have the what you're really looking for is the aptitude. Do you have the mechanical aptitude to figure these types of things out, because then you can go study and do other types of things. But I still recommend that if you're going to do a job that you've never done before, but you feel confident doing it, you tell the homeowner exactly what I just said. I have not done this job before. I've done other similar jobs. Based on that, I feel confident I can do it. However, this is your home, and I want you to be completely upfront and honest with you. If you want to give me a shot and go ahead and let me try this, that would be great. You'd probably throw a discount in there, would be my recommendation. At least get a couple of those underneath your belt before you kind of move forward. Number two, comfortable learning new skills and expanding your offerings. Some people want to grow and have a wide repertoire of different jobs that they do, and some want to keep it narrow. If you really want to open up more avenues for jobs, if you have a tight market and you really can't focus on one thing, are you comfortable learning things? A good example of this is I'm going to go to a Schluter. Schluter is like a German bathroom remodeling company. They do like waterproof underlayments and whatnot. And they give some free training. If you just Google Schluter, I think it's SCHLUTR. They have these free workshops all across the country. They'll even put you up in a hotel and feed you. So I'm not comfortable in some of that stuff. I've done a few jobs, so I'm going to continue to expand my skills. And I like that. I'm comfortable doing that. The next one is, do I have a strong work ethic and ability to handle physical labor? The strong work ethic is is important. And the reason I'm laughing is my wife is Japanese, which makes my children half Japanese. And when my son first started working with me, I said, hey, I need you to work all day. I need you to do this and that. And he said, Dad, I have a strong work ethic. I was surprised. I said, well, you haven't worked that much. How do you figure? And he said, well, I'm half Japanese. And I said, it doesn't work that way. I was like, that work ethic is proved over time. It's not an inherent skill. I thought that was funny. He said that. If you like that, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. But having that work ethic and being able to handle physical labor, because sometimes these jobs can be tough physically on your body, so you have to be prepared for that. Moving on to the business acumen. Um, this is probably an area where a lot of people struggle, and it's an area where I try to focus my channel a lot on. Um, a lot of people who are good at the things I just described may not necessarily be good at the business acumen side. I would probably say I was better at the business side than at the skill side. Even though I enjoy it, I just didn't have enough repetitions to have that great skill. Um, but you have to be honest with yourself. Are you comfortable in the business side of things, marketing, financing, customer service? If not, then write down the next questions I would ask myself is, how can I get skills in this? One of them is watching what you're watching right now, a YouTube video where somebody's pointing these things out. I recommend that you go to imhandy.org, my free website, where I try to take the best of different people in the handyman space that are out there in areas of business acumen and whatnot. So learn what different people are doing for marketing and financing and customer service. What kind of tools and techniques are they using? Look at some of the books that I recommended. If you're brand new and starting off, I would recommend checking out um, the Small Time Operator by Bernard Kameroff. I'll try to leave a link down below for that. In addition to that, are you willing to learn about some of the regulations, permitting, insurance requirements? Kind of goes in line with question number one. And then the next piece is, do I have a plan for finding customers and building a client base? That's kind of the marketing piece. So ask yourself, do you have that? Do you know how to do that? What do you want to teach yourself? And maybe write out a plan. I'm going to watch these things. I'm going to read these types of books. I'm going to hire a coach, whatever it may be. I would recommend you check that out. Moving on to lifestyle and goals. This is question number one, being your own boss and setting your own schedule. This is probably the number one driver why anyone wants to be self-employed or have their own business. It's great being your own boss, and it's terrible being your own boss, right? So be realistic with yourself. What is that going to mean? You hear people say time and time again, you're going to work more hours, and that is probably 99% true. And at least initially, you're going to work more hours. Okay, moving on to question number two. Am I comfortable with the income fluctuations? If this is your only money coming in, I definitely recommend starting off part-time if you can. If you got a steady kind of daytime job, I would, personally, I would say go 6 months to a year, right? Go part-time, see what happens. See what happens in the winter. See what happens in the summer. See things go up and down. See all the cheap guys come in and then watch them disappear. It gives you a true sense of kind of what's going on in your market, in your area. If you do decide to just jump in, I would probably have some cash flow set aside or some money set aside to kind of get you through those ups and downs. Don't forget about the taxes and those other types of things that go along with that. Kind of in line with what I just mentioned, is this going to be a full-time thing or a part-time thing? I started off part-time. I was leaning towards going full-time, and I decided to stay part-time. And me personally, it's worked out great. Just a side note, for me, I haven't really worked the last month and a half. I had family in town. I had a bunch of things going on with the family, and that was fantastic, right? But there was a price to pay for that. Income, nothing really for handyman business for that month and a half. But the good side is I have other jobs that pay for my bills, and I was able to spend time with my family. So think about what your life is like. Do you have children? Do you have commitments? What is your work-life balance going to be? How is handyman stuff going to fit into that? Because if you watch a video on making $1,000 a day, yeah, those days can happen, but it's not like you're going to work 365 days making $365,000. That's most likely not going to happen as a solo operator. So be prepared for that. And then the last one I'll dwell on here a little bit, the long-term goals for the business. So I want you to imagine yourself in this job 5 years from now. You have reviews, you've done multiple jobs, you have all this experience behind you. What reputation do you want? What do you want people to say about you as a handyman? What are your qualities? What are your values? Me personally, my values are honesty, integrity, like reliability. I always show up, right? I've never missed a job. I communicate well. I do good work. All these types of core characteristics that I want to show. Those are my long-term goals for my business, and those are reflected currently in a lot of the reviews that I get. So think about what you want your reviews to say, and then strive to take action to earn those reviews. Those don't come cheap, they don't come easy. They come through dedication and persistence over and over and over again. And if you have that long term view, you can weather that storm, or you can weather that, hey, nobody knows who I am, I'm not ranked on Google. If you consistently have perfection over and over and over and deliver excellence over and over and over again, you will get there. You just have to have that long-term view. There's a saying out there that we tend to overestimate what we can do in 1 year, but we tend to underestimate what we can do in 5 to 10 years. So don't overestimate the year, and don't underestimate what you can do in the long term. Moving on to competition and market. This one, you really just want to get a sense of what's out there, right? If you're in this business, you're probably in this business because you see a lot of people asking for help on Facebook or Nextdoor, or friends or family. See what it's like in your area. What are people asking for? How are people responding? Who's getting good stuff? Who's popular? I definitely recommend reaching out to good players in your space. Invite them. Say, hey, I'll take breakfast. I just want to kind of pick your brain. I'm thinking about getting into this area. I've done that with a few folks here, and they were just open kimono with me. And I would recommend you kind of do the same. Find the good players out there, get their thoughts. And I would recommend you find players that have been doing this for at least 3 to 5 years, because they've gone through that gauntlet, right? A lot of people come and go in this business, and you don't want the ones that come and go. You want the ones that have multiple Google reviews, that have been in business for a while. People are saying good things about it. So reach out and try to find some of them. Try to figure out what's going to set you apart. For me, it's reliability. I always show up. That's in my market. That's all I really need to uh, to show up and to be honest. And then be ready to be competitive. There's a lot of low ballers out there, right? And if that's the market you want to get into, so be it. I wouldn't recommend it. I would find out what your worth is. I would read some books, figure out how much money you need to make, and then stick to that price. And what's going to happen is there's a lot of jobs you just won't get, can't take, or whatever, because your price is too high, and that's fine, because there's other jobs out there. You just have to maintain what are your prices, what are your quality, what's your reliability that you deliver. And then finally, this is the last topic that I'm going to cover today, is considering alternatives. If you're looking at this and you're like, oh, I don't know about handyman, then maybe it's not for you, right? Maybe something in the handyman space is for you, but not truly being a handyman. So look at other areas, options that utilize your skills. I recommend, if there's a great podcast out there called the Side Hustle Show, hosted by Nick Loper. I'll leave a link down below. He goes over. I love his podcast because every week it's somebody doing some different side hustle, And I love it, right? I'm like, oh, I never thought about doing this. I never thought about doing that. And I always think about it with a spin from the handyman perspective. Like, well, I wonder if I could do that in the handyman. Could I do this as to support the handyman community? Because I love being a part of the handyman community, and I know that my days are numbered in terms of being out there, getting up on ladders. So, when I'm in my 50s, 60s, if I still want to be involved in some of this stuff, it'll probably be some type of side hustle supporting it in another capacity. Um, and then finally, if you're like, man, it's a lot of stuff to learn. I really don't want to go completely out on my own yet. I like the idea of having a steady job and maybe doing something on the side. Then go work for a company as a handyman. There's no shame in that, right? Are you going to make as much money as you would by yourself? No, you're not. But are you going to get some experience? Are you going to see how their systems are working? Yeah, absolutely. So, take a look at that. See if it's out there. See if it's something that works for you. And then maybe that's part of your 5-year plan is I'm going to work for a company for at least a year or so, and then I'm going to make a decision after that and go back to your notes. And if the decision is, hey, let's jump full time, then go for it. And if not, then, stick where you are, and there's no shame in that. Anyway, I hope you like this video. Again, this is number one, lesson number one of a series I'm going to be putting out. Hopefully I can stay consistent about trying to put them out about a week, uh, every week or so. I'll be trying to put out a video. But if you like this kind of content, if you find this kind of stuff useful, go ahead and let me know by giving me a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and stay tuned for the next one. I appreciate it.